Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton with episode number 181. And on today's episode, we're talking about the crazy degree that how you think can affect what you do or what your body does, aka the upside and the downside of the placebo effect. So people generally know, I think, or think they know what a placebo is. You know, when you hear about studies, they're like, well, one group was given a placebo. And it's the treatment arm. So like one group was given the medicine, the other group was given the placebo when they're trying to see how effective the medicine is. A placebo is the side that where they give them a fake. It's a treatment that has no active properties. So like if team A was getting a shot of insulin, I don't know, make up whatever you want. And team B would get just like a shot of like saline, right? Something that has no active properties. So they do this. Why do they do this? Because the placebo effect is real. If you did a study where you gave half the group the placebo medicine, let's say a third of the group the placebo medicine, a third of the group the actual medicine, and a third of the group nothing, the placebo group will still do better than the nothing group because there is power in belief. If you believe you're doing something that will help you, there is some improvement. Now, it's often not as much as the medicine would do, right? I'm not saying medicine is useless, but there is power in placebo. But what does that mean? That doesn't mean there's power in fake medicine or snake oil or whatever. It means there is power in mindset. This is the placebo effect. The placebo effect is when a person has a response to a fake treatment. It is this response. But why? Why do we have this kind of response? It's because our mind is super powerful. So there was a study done. When was this study done? I don't know when this study was done. This study was done a long time ago, 2011. If that's that a long time ago, oh gosh, that was a long time ago. But what they did is they were looking at ghrelin response in the stomach. So you guys know we have a couple of different hormones. Ghrelin is one of them that has to do with satiety. I was going to say we have a couple of satiety hormones. We have more than a couple of hormones, but we have some satiety hormones, one of which is called ghrelin. And ghrelin rises when we're hungry. It is the feed me hormone, right? It is that hormone that goes up to let you know, to let your brain know, hey, we need food. Right. And so ghrelin is affected by a number of factors. But one of the things it's most affected by is if you're eating or not. Right. Have you eaten recently? It rises and it diminishes after you eat. It goes down. And so they did a test where they gave a group of people a milkshake. And they either told them it was a 620 calorie indulgent milkshake, or it was a 140 calorie sensible milkshake. So kind of like a diet milkshake versus a high calorie milkshake, right? So what did they do? They measured their blood sample at baseline, which was at 20 minutes into the experiment, then at 60 minutes into the experiment, and at 90 minutes into the experiment. And at 60 minutes is when they were given the shake. So they were brought in. At 20 minutes in, their ghrelin was tested. And at 20 minutes, they were given a nutrition label that matched the shake they were told they were getting, that showed how many calories it had, what was in it, that kind of thing. And then at 60 minutes, they drank the shake, and then they tested them again 30 minutes later. And what they found was that the participants who were given the indulgent shake had lower levels of ghrelin. They had a steeper decline in ghrelin after consuming the shake, whereas the people told they were given a low-calorie shake the sensible shake, their ghrelin didn't diminish much at all, indicating that they would still find themselves equally hungry after that shake from a hormonal perspective. But what's the trick? What's the catch? Both groups were given the same calorie shake. It was right in the middle. It was like a 380 calorie shake. So they were either told this has a lot of calories and it's very indulgent, or this has very few calories and it's very sensible. And their body's ghrelin, so a hormone response was produced that matched what they thought, not what they actually ate, because both groups were given the exact same milkshake. So why am I harping on this? Why is this so important? Well, how many times do we think we're not doing well? We think our diet isn't going well. We think negative things. Keto stopped working, whatever these thought processes we have, they have a powerful effect on our body, what we think. And this has actually been found to be true in many ways in terms of diet as well. So one of the things I like to point out is how you perceive your diet is very important. So if you think your diet is restrictive, then you're more likely to binge. If you think you're having, the downsides of the way that you eat, if you think that you're eating a very low calorie diet. So here's another one. I don't have this study right in front of me, but I've read it in the past. So I'll just give a kind of a general overview rather than details. But basically, if you're keeping your calories very, very low or your diet very, very restrictive in your mind, I'm not saying it actually is, but you're like, I'm so restricted, I can't have this or that. If those thoughts are happening a lot, you are a lot more likely to binge. And so what will happen is, I'm using calories here. You guys know I'm a calorie girl, but you can extrapolate beyond the calorie here. It's a really easy thing to discuss. So you can be like, I eat 12,000 calories, 12,000. Wow. 1,200 calories a day diet. I'm super restricted. It's a super low calorie diet. I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. Well, a lot of people go in this pattern where they're so restricted, they break. And so they have this habit of being like 1,200 calories a day, 5 days a week. And that's like Lollapalooza on the weekend, crazy style caloric binge. And they eat like 4,000 calories. Whereas if they'd actually eaten, more like enough to satisfy them, and they weren't in this mindset that they felt super restricted, they would be eating less overall over the entire week. And part of that is that mental effort of restriction. To another point, a lot of people, they might think they're eating. So when they survey people and they say, like, how many calories are you eating? And they'll be like, I'm on a very restricted diet. I'm only eating 1,200 calories. And they then actually test what they're eating, and they're eating more like 1,600 calories or 70, like about 50% more than they thought. But those people who are telling themselves they're eating 1,200 calories, they binge more and they feel more restricted than people who say, oh no, I'm eating around 1,700 calories, when they're actually eating the same amount of calories. I'm not saying that under eating doesn't make you hungry, but what I'm saying is that what you think you're doing, if you lie to yourself and say, I'm eating very little, when you're eating kind of a moderate amount, not a lot, but not like a ridiculous amount, that produces a level of stress that makes your body act poorly, right? It makes you hungrier. So if you said, if somebody lied to you, they were feeding you and they said, you're only getting 1,200 calories, but they were really giving you 2,000 calories, you will be hungrier than if they said, hey, this is 2,000 calories and gave you the meals. You'd be like, oh my gosh, this is so much food. I'm really full. And you might actually feel that fullness, but the brain will work against you based on what you're thinking. And if your thinking is, wow, I'm being really restricted, you will be hungrier. You will have a different response. So one of the things to bring this home is to tell you how important your mindset is, that you should feel abundant about your food. Unfortunately, you can't really lie to yourself in a good way here. You can't know that you're eating 100 calories and pretend you're eating 6. However, you can make better food choices that make you feel fuller and acknowledge that goodness. You can Say to yourself, oh, this is not that restrictive. You can find an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset around it. You can include things you love that work for your diet rather than eating a diet that doesn't make you feel happy and satisfied, right? There are choices we can make that put us in the positive mindset category, not fake positivity, but like real positivity. And when we feel good about the way we eat and we feel fulfilled by the way that we eat and we focus on the good stuff rather than the bad stuff, that power of placebo, that power of mindset that we get out of the negative loop and we get into a positive one, it's going to actually reap physiological benefits. We are not separate from our mind. We are part of, and our mind is part of us. We can't separate them. So we are what we think, and we need to think about ourselves in a positive way. All right, guys, that was your bit of info for this week, and I will see you next week.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.